All right, in this case study, we're going to look at cost and what I refer to as the business death spiral, or sometimes the Google Ads death spiral. When we're thinking about marketing for this particular case study, we want to think about how we're strategically positioning ourselves to be successful, not just this month or in the next 30 days, but 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. And this is a particular situation that a lot of organizations find themselves in, and that I have a lot of experience with, my agency has a lot of experience with. Not surprising to probably anyone, most people don't go shopping for a new marketing partner if things are going really well, right? If things are going great, they're probably going to not be paying too much attention to marketing, whether that's an internal department or an external agency. So by default, a lot of the organizations we work with are ones that are starting to struggle. They have a problem that needs to be solved. And so we get a lot of organizations that are on the brink of bankruptcy, or they have been major cash flow issues, or they've just seen a significant loss in market share, in revenue. Something's going on. They don't know what it is. They start to identify marketing as potentially one of those areas that need help. And so we get a call. Then there becomes a capital problem and a cash flow problem and a political problem in these situations. So if you're familiar with Clayton Christensen, he's a phenomenal mind in terms of business and growth and innovation. He wrote the Innovator's Dilemma, if you're familiar with that particular book. And one of the things that he noticed, which was really smart and which I see constantly in our work with organizations, is this potential for a death spiral that's very hard to pull out of. So hopefully, kind of talking through this case study, you'll be able to think through that death spiral and not get stuck in it. Or if you're stuck in it, how do you get out of it? So I could give 50 different organizations that has happened to, but I'll think of a particular one. They were spending north of $500,000 a month on their marketing campaigns just for digital. So that doesn't count their boots on the ground sales team. That doesn't count any infrastructure. It was just their digital spend. And what started to happen is they wouldn't hit their numbers. And so maybe those numbers were real. And what I mean by real is that the organization would be losing money or wouldn't have the revenue it needed to continue to thrive or hopefully grow if they didn't meet their numbers. So that's what I consider a real number. And then sometimes there's also these fake objectives, or maybe it's a growth number that's a goal. And so in that situation, we don't need to hit this number to be sustainable. We just want to hit this number because that's our growth goal. So it's a little bit more arbitrary. For this particular organization, it was definitely a financial goal that they absolutely needed to hit because they didn't have enough runway left. They were going to run out of cash. The business was not going to be successful if they didn't start hitting these numbers. And so again, for a lot of organizations, instead of doing cost cutting, one thing that they'll look at is, well, we got to be more successful on the marketing side. If we get more customers in, if we get more patients in, that's going to solve our cost problems, which is accurate from a financial projection standpoint, but difficult to do. So how do we get into the death spiral? We end up in a situation where we have limited time and limited capital and a lot of pressure on the executive team, a lot of pressure on the marketing department. And so they say, look, we're not going to hit our goals. We want to hit whatever it is, 100 patients for this particular facility by the end of the month. We're 2 weeks into the month. It's halfway through. We're not going to hit that number. We need to get another 15 patients in the door, another 15 customers. How do we do that? There is no immediate solution for that, right? Marketing isn't a magic button. It's not a silver bullet that we can turn on or turn off. Like, it's a very difficult strategic play. As we've talked about, there's a lot of data, a lot of psychology, a lot of strategy. The only short-term channels that really work at the end of the day are often Google Ads, because that's a bottom of funnel channel. So what are people doing on Google when they're clicking an ad? They have a problem that needs to be solved immediately. So for this particular organization I'm thinking of, they were doing addiction treatment services, and there's obviously a lot of patients on Google that are looking for addiction treatment. So there's a potential to increase your Google ad spend in a way that gets you more patients, assuming you have volume in your area. So again, there's not always going to be volume. We've talked about this before, or in the Google Ads section if you haven't been to that particular module yet. But there's only so many people searching per day for a particular term. right? How many people in your city are searching for addiction treatment today? Maybe there's 5 of them, maybe there's 10 of them, but that's it. So no matter how much money you spend on Google Ads, there's only those 5 or 10 potential people. Now, there's other tiers of people, right? Maybe there's people that are just kind of thinking about treatment, but not urgent to get into care, and maybe you can run keywords to them and try to convert them. It's much harder, much more expensive. Possibilities there. The bottom line is that we want to reach these high intent people. So they come to us as a marketing partner and say, well, what can we do? We need to hear numbers 2 weeks from now. I say, well, really, we need to be thinking strategically about this. The only way to do any kind of short-term results is to throw more money at Google Ads and hope we haven't hit our volume cap. But within the addiction treatment space, this is really expensive. So Google Ads is just a very, very high cost channel, and it is not profitable as a standalone channel. As we've talked about in other case studies, you can run and hopefully get like a $0 sum where you're not making money, but you're not losing money. And this can drive further word of mouth, down the line. But for this particular provider, it was a money losing proposition to drive more money into Google Ads, but they wanted to hit their numbers. And they thought that if they could get that wheel churning, then they'd be able to do a better job of covering their costs. So we take the extra budget and we throw another $50,000 into Google Ads for the last 2 weeks for these particular facilities. And of course, we get some extra patients in the door, but again, they're not profitable. And so what happens month 2 in this scenario? Well, now we have even less cash flow. We have even less of a runway, less time available. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, we're in the same exact position we were before. Oh my God, we're not going to hit our numbers. And we're actually farther down. We're behind because we didn't hit the numbers even last month, even though we got some more admissions and it wasn't enough to cover, the kind of census debt that we're looking to fix. And so now they come back to the table. They say, well, what can we do, in this last 2 weeks to get more admissions? And again, same response. Well, there's nothing that you can do. You have to think strategically about how we fix this organization 6 months from now. But if you want a couple extra admissions, that are really expensive, that aren't going to be profitable, we can throw it into Google Ads. And so we do that. And this becomes a death spiral. And several of our clients have gone out of business following this death spiral. So why does this happen? Well, because one, there's this focus on numbers and short-termism, but also it's a political problem. So you want to think about it. Let's say that you've got a private equity board or a nonprofit board, or even if you're a marketing department or the CMO and you've got to go to your CEO and talk to them and figure out a strategy to hit the numbers. Well, I can either ask for 2 weeks and $50,000, or I can say, hey, I need 6 months and I need $2 million. And that's what's going to solve our problem. Politically, even bringing up the idea of 6 months and $2 million is usually not too palatable to a lot of boards or a lot of executive teams. And this is the rut, this is the downward spiral that the organizations get stuck in. They get so focused on the short term and there's not the political will behind the organization or behind the decision makers to actually get people into the strategic mindset that they need to make. As we'll talk about in the data module, when you're thinking through probabilities and things like that, there's massive risk, right? If you say I need $2 million in 6 months, that is a massive risk, but not really if you do it right. If you know what you're doing, most marketing and most business growth is a long play. Turnarounds are also a long play. Usually a really successful turnaround is actually just massive cost cutting to stabilize the business and then putting in place the long-term strategy to get you back to where you want to be. There's very few situations that you can go in and just tweak a couple numbers and fix your finance department and fix the marketing department and fix your sales team. And then suddenly a month later, the business is solid again. That's not very common. So we don't want to think about that long-term strategy, and we want to think about avoiding this death spiral. And part of that is the political component. So hopefully that case study was enlightening, because maybe you were in that situation. Maybe that's why you're watching this training here, but you want to avoid that. You want to make the long-term strategic commitment, keeping the short-term in mind, but not putting most of your investment on the short term, because it's probably not going to be what saves you.